Hello there, my name is Richard. The first time seeing my channel, I used to review cartoon series, anime series, or something completely random, and today we talk about a new segment I like to call Abandoned Animated Films. This segment only focuses on films that is not as well known, something like Disney or Pixar type of films. They're just legitimately good, but they have their own flaws. The reason I want to talk about them is because sometimes there is nothing talked about in between new animating anything. So give me an excuse to talk about old films, or semi-old film in this case. And today we're going to talk about called Ginger Tales. This is a new animated film back in 2020, come out back in Germany. But this anime film made it so special for two things. The first thing is the animation. The animation, oh my god, the animation, it kind of throws you off because the animation feels something from Disney old wheelhouse, that sort of animation that's just so fluent with a little CGI just to point things out, like someone holding a matchbox or someone actually looking at something and make it shine to see that object is important. That's the only time they're using. Also the direction, oh my god, some of the animation direction, how a character move or showing something they had to hold but it moved back and forth to emphasize something about to happen. Those kind of things just so well. If you don't know what I mean, think of it sort of like Primal. If you've seen that animated show, that every time someone does something, you just understand the reactions or showing you something to about to happen. That's what I mean. The direction is just so well handled, at least half of the way. Of course, I did say no, these animated films are not perfect, has its flaws, but that's something else later on in this review. Now, I think the third most important thing about this film is the fact it kind of shows you an old fairy tale that nobody really knows that much, called the Tinderbox. If you don't heard the fairy tale, I don't blame you, because this fairy tale is one of those sort of hard to readapt because how dark it is. How the best describe it is sort of like a supervillain's backstory. It's sort of messed up and the supervillain wins. In a way, the best to describe, because it's kind of dark, put it that way. But you may know the author or the author work. His name is basically H.C. Anderson. If that name sounds familiar, it's the same person who did The Ugly Duckling and The Little Match Girl. If you hear the two stories, you know his basically his library in other words. But the Tinderbox is basically his first story. It really shows because it's really dark. But the only problem is because it's a little bit too dark, it's sort of hard to adapt. Yeah, I'm sort of impressed they decided to adapt this story because it took a lot of elements of that story and make this animated film. And to describe the animated film, it's basically this girl who wants to be sort of a fighter, but she's sort of a klutz because she never waits for the perfect time to actually do something on the moment. In other words, because someone's in danger, she doesn't think she does. But that's the whole point of the story, that she had to have patience and wait for a plan. But once more, it's sort of influenced because one of the firefighters congratulate her doing a good job when she's young, and that sort of stuck to her. But the only problem is she's so obsessed to be that successful, kind of screw over to be a fighter in other words. And this is the reason why the whole town's kind of hate her. She's sort of a klutz, never really thinks. In fact, these only share half of the story. The other half shares with her best friend called Potter. Now, Potter is the original character in the Tinderbox. The only difference is they changed it up to a soldier trying to look for work to a potter. Now, Potter is a guy who overshadowed his grandfather because his grandfather is sort of legendary. This guy could make statues, like the beautiful art. He could make anything just beautiful with a lot of detail, that sort of glorious, especially he was super young. And that's the problem, because Potter, he is specifically only knew how to do pots. He could do other things, but he never had that type of talent. And that's the thing sort of kind of frustrated him, because every time he tried to do something different, people keep reminding him, like, oh, you're not like your grandfather did this, your grandfather did that. And Potter is just kind of pissed off, tired, hearing that over and over. And that's why he sort of started getting angry, started trying to figure out how to get away with it. But the only problem is Potter owes a lot of money to everyone, including his friends. But his friends is kind of cool. All four of his friends, each one especially to one special thing, but all of them understand it takes time to do your skills. But because of that, he just sort of frustrated, want to walk away. He never could actually think to master his own craft, because every single time he has a chance to actually figure it out, someone reminds him of his grandfather. He can never get away with a shadow. Now, you also have a third character connected to the two other characters called the Evil Queen. And the Evil Queen is exactly her title, her name, that the whole town just sort of tired her. But I have to admit, for a villain for this fairy tale, she is actually a really good villain. In fact, how you introduce her is almost doesn't tell you much about her. You just see what she does. In fact, the first time you see her, she just argued with her assistant, inventor, going to the corner of a tower and started making a machine and using sort of a matchbox. In this case, they changed the matchbox to a stone. This stone, if you click it a couple times, it sparks, and the sparks, it reappears a dog. Once more, if you read the book, that makes sense, because this story based on that book, but they changed a lot of elements to make this movie actually work. Because in the story, it was sort of like a lighter. In other words, you just use it a couple of times. Every time he used a dog reappear, affect 3 dogs. Each dog a little bit different and bigger and stronger. It's sort of like a 3 wishes type of genie. You ask anything you want, the dogs can do. If you want to kill a whole army, the dogs are that powerful and strong, can actually kill the army. If you want gold, the dog can get you gold. It's just the limit of your wishes now works. But they changed it up, something interesting of this type of story. At least the movie, they did it in a way they make it interesting, because every time they use the sort of magic rocks to make the dogs come, you don't know what is about the dogs, who are they, where it come from. And this is the whole point of the movie, is the fact they sort of explain why they were created, but to the very end, because the book, they really want to explain. Maybe this is the reason I said it's probably the first time the author did the first story, because it asks a lot of questions but never answer them because how dark it goes. And this is the whole point of the movie, sort of answer them. They do answer it, like the dogs sort of tempt you to become evil, assist with gold and greed. And I mean gold and greed. Every time you call a dog, each dog drops a gold, silver, or bronze coin. But the more you keep using it, the more excessive you do. The more excessive, the more greedy and hungry. I mean hungry. The queen, the evil queen, uses them to eat the coins. I mean, they don't show it, but if she turns around or the camera moves a different way, they don't show she eating it, but you sort of assuming she eating it. And that's the reason why she does it, is because you keep her young. It gets weird because the book never went that direction, but at the same time to make her a little disturbing, because the queen really stands out of this book. She really feels very kind of what's the best way to describe it? Sort of spoiled inside. She's just sort of disgusting evil. Everything she says or says someone, especially her assistant, inventor, who is in love with her, just disdain of hatred. She's just so bitter and malice. It's one of those, it's just so over the top. You kind of enjoy to see this evil side of her. But once more, you never go that far, but you just enjoy the performance. Of course, that's basically the whole story. All 3 of them sort of connected by this magic rock. The reason why they connected is the fact Potter find this magic rocks because the evil queen sort of accidentally dropped them, and now she's looking for him. But the only part of Potter gets more evil, more messed up, and her friend Ginger, who trying to help her, but at the same time trying to figure out who she is and how she loved, and also how she loves Potter, but she doesn't know how to approach it, and Potter doesn't notice her. I mean, a lot of tropes of fairy tales go into it. The evil witch, the love triangle, the MacGuffin of the 3 rules of fairy tale. I mean, you say it 3 times, basically to get it through your head, to understand this is important, this is a lesson you must learn. Every single fairy tale trick story you ever read is on this movie, and it almost completely works, except for the final act and the musical. Oh, I forgot, this is a musical. It doesn't need to be a musical because the story is just so unique and different. It doesn't really need it. But I think because it's a fairy tale, because Disney did it too, it's so successful, this movie decided to be a musical. But the only part is the music is not that amazing. Be fair, they don't do singing that much. They don't sing 3 times. One at the beginning, one for the Evil Villain song, and one to close the whole story. That's it. It doesn't really take much of the movie, but it does kind of wish they could remove it. It doesn't really matter, except for the evil song. The evil song, it works, but I've seen better. It's one of those, like, it has potential. It's just did not have the writing skills to write a really good song. Now, the second sort of kind of sad part about this film is the final act, how everything sort of wraps up. They sort of was in a rush. Some of the things just appear to answer some questions or sort of solve some things. And that's what I mean. It's sort of kind of rushed because you kind of wish they took more of their time to build the story, because the story did have a lot of potential. I mean, wow, how was the very beginning kind of grab you till it started singing. You're just like, oh, so close. Luckily they stopped. After that, the story became more interesting. Of course, the only problem is the writing. The writing starts good, but the more it goes on, the weaker the writing ends. It just, once more, it's not perfect. But it's one of those things you just expected to have a good time. You will get a good time. Just sort of aware this movie has the flaws. Something that put that behind your back so you don't feel disappointed, because I did enjoy it. I kind of wish they had more time writing, at least fix the final act. That's the most needed. But all that, everything sort of clicks except for the final act. That's the only thing I cannot stop pointing out. But all that, it was a great film. It was those sort of surprising film, because I didn't know this film actually existed, because I sort of accidentally found it on Hulu. If you want to see the movie, if you have Hulu, you could watch it on Hulu. It's one of those I kind of recommend it if you have some spare time. It's not something like on top of your list. It's something that I got nothing else to do. I watched everything. There's this anime movie. I can watch it. Just use your phone or do your homework, clean the house. Just leave it on. It does grab your attention. It just have its flaws. I mean, of course, it's just a very simple film. It's just something. It just sort of oppressed me because it's based on a really dark story. How they sort of develop it. I kind of wish more people do this story again. Just do it a different way, because this story has probably the most potential. I think a lot of different fairy tale are not the most well known. Is the ones that have more creativity. They never give it a chance to actually make a good story. Now I got nothing else to say. Just one thing. Did you hear this story? You actually enjoyed this movie? You ever heard it or seen it? Tell me down below. Let me know. I really got nothing else to say. Just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.